frost and starlight. The blue flame danced in Elara's cupped palms, impossibly cold against her skin. Around her, the ancient forest held its breath. Moonflower petals, crushed at midnight when their whispers were strongest, spiraled through the air like indigo snow. "I know you're real," she whispered to the darkness between the trees, "as real as the pain that calls me to you." The hollow beneath her left collarbone throbbed in response, a phantom ache that had plagued her for 27 nights. 27 nights since the frost-eyed stranger first appeared at the edge of her dreams. 3 days earlier, her mother had cornered her in the cottage garden. "You're changing, Elara," her mother had said, voice trembling as she clutched her weaving shawl. "Your grandmother had that look once, before she started hearing voices in the trees." "What happened to her?" Elara had asked, though she already suspected the answer. "She disappeared one autumn night. We found her shawl by the old growth, but nothing else. The village said wolves, but..." Her mother's voice had cracked. "There were no tracks, no blood, just that shawl and the smell of something sweet, like flowers that shouldn't bloom in autumn." Now, kneeling among ferns that had witnessed centuries turn like slow pages, Elara understood. The ache wasn't madness or fancy, it was inheritance. The flame in her hands suddenly contracted to a pinprick of light, then burst outward in silent radiance. When her vision cleared, the wall of forest before her had parted, not broken or trampled, but reshaped, as though the world had taken a breath and made space. A path beckoned, lined with moss that glowed faintly in the darkness. Elara stood, took a final breath of the life behind her, and stepped through. The deeper she walked, the more reality bent. Trees twisted into impossible geometries, their branches forming angles that made her eyes water. Roots emerged from soil only to dive back in Mobius curves. Time grew strange, slowing, quickening, folding in on itself. Light filtered through the canopy, not in beams, but in particles, hanging in the air like stars trapped in amber. Her own thoughts echoed back at her before she could finish forming them. "Find me where the azure sings." The voice from her dreams resonated through the hollow space in her chest. She pressed her hand to her collarbone, feeling the rhythm that matched her heartbeat, but belonged to something else entirely. When she finally paused to catch her breath, night had fallen completely. No stars pierced the canopy. No moon cast silver light. Yet darkness here was not absolute. Ahead, crystals rose from the forest floor, deep blue formations that pulsed with inner light, casting a glow that seemed to drain color from everything else. The ache beneath her collarbone flared in recognition. "They remember," said a voice, everywhere and nowhere at once. "The land remembers all who pass through it, and those who are yet to come." Elara's hand moved to the knife at her side. "Show yourself." "I have shown myself since your first dream," the voice replied, now behind her. "The question is, are you ready to see?" She turned. Between two ancient oaks stood the figure from her dreams. Tall and fluid, his form shifted with every breath. Crystal sharp one moment, mercury smooth the next, then suddenly reflecting her own face, as if mirrored in still water. Only his eyes remained unchanged, pale, frost-like, filled with the focused depth of someone who lived in many realities at once. "You," she breathed, her knife falling forgotten. "You're real." "As real as the ache that brought you here," he said, stepping forward. Each motion left soft after-images that shimmered before dissolving. "What took you so long, Elara, who aches?" "I tried to resist," she admitted. "I threw myself into village life. I danced, I wove, I even took the blacksmith's son to my bed, hoping normal life would drown out your call." His form solidified slightly, and she caught a flicker of something almost like amusement. "And how did that work for you?" "Every morning, my eyes found the forest. Every night, the ache grew stronger." She touched her chest. "What are you? What is this place?" "I am the thing remembered when all else is forgotten. I am what waits in the space between heartbeats." He extended a hand that both was and was not a hand, woven of shadow and light, solid and impossible. "And you, Elara who aches, are the one who carries my echo in your hollow places." She stared at his outstretched hand. "If I take it, what happens to me?" "You become more than you ever imagined possible." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give. Some truths can only be lived, not explained." She looked back the way she'd come, toward the village where her mother waited, where the blacksmith's son probably still wondered why she'd fled his warmth. "My grandmother. She came here too, didn't she?" "She came close," he confirmed. Fear turned her back. Her hollow closed, became another kind of pain. But mine grew. With each dream, with each recognition. His eyes held infinite sadness and infinite patience. "You are not the first of your line to stand here, Elara, but you are the first ready to cross." "Cross to where?" Instead of answering, he turned and began walking deeper into the crystal-lit clearing. "Come, let me show you." Against every instinct the weaver's daughter possessed, Elara reached out and took his hand. His touch was paradox, fire and ice, solid and void. Reality fractured around her. She saw, tasted, heard fragments of other existences, skies with unrecorded stars, trees that grew in both directions at once, creatures half thought, half form. "I should be terrified," she whispered, though her voice emerged as light between them. "Terror and wonder are often indistinguishable," he replied, leading her through realms without names. "Your grandmother felt the same thing. The difference is, you're not running from it." They passed through a cathedral of trees, whose trunks were inscribed with equations not yet discovered. Flowers bloomed from fractures in the air itself. Creatures flickered between visibility and concept, watching their passage with ancient, knowing eyes. "What's your name?" Elara asked as they walked. "Names are limiting things," he said. "I am what I am in each moment. To you right now I am guide. Tomorrow I might be memory. The day after, dream." "That's frustrating." Most true things are. They crested what seemed a ridge, but was actually a fold in dimensional fabric. Before them lay a valley that belonged to no world she knew. At its center was a pool that reflected not the sky above, but skies. Multiple layers of reality stacked atop one another. Mountains rose around it, shifting between stone and thought, vibrating with a frequency that translated to Elara as music. "The azure that sings," she breathed. "The crossing point," he confirmed, "where reality's thin enough to traverse." They stood at the pool's edge, the ground beneath them pulsing with rhythms that matched her heartbeat. The surface was impossibly still, more mirror than water, more potential than reflection. "Why me?" she asked. "Of all the hollow-ached people in all the villages, why call to me?" His form dimmed, becoming a constellation of possibilities. "Because you are already part of this place, a fragment of this reality embedded in flesh, passed down through your grandmother's line, waiting for one who could bear the contradiction of existing in multiple states at once." "What happens when I enter?" "Completion, the fragment rejoining the whole." "Will I die?" "You will transform. Death is such a small word for what awaits." She looked into the pool, seeing herself reflected in a dozen different ways, as child, as woman, as something beyond both. Will I remember who I was? You will remember everything and become more. And you, what happens to you? His eyes, the only constant thing about him, held infinite gentleness. I have waited for millennia. Each crossing draws me closer to my own transition. To what? To whatever waits beyond even this, the next unfolding. Above them, the air thickened. Milky threads of light wove through the trees, not just through branches, but through the spaces between them. The forest itself held its breath. Elara thought of her mother, alone in the cottage, of the blacksmith's son, warm and solid and real, of harvests and children, and the simple certainty of a life mapped out in seasons. None of it had ever filled the hollow. "Will we be together?" she asked. "On the other side?" "For a time," he said, stepping beside her. "Until the next unfolding. We are not destinations, Elara. We are bridges." She nodded, understanding finally flooding through her. The ache in her chest was not emptiness, it was space. Space for this moment, this choice, this transformation. "I'm ready," she said. "I know." And she stepped into the pool. The liquid rose around her, cold as starlight, warm as blood. Her body dissolved without dying. Her consciousness expanded, touching stones and sky, folding into dimensions she had only glimpsed in sleep. The shapeshifter's hand remained in hers, not guiding now, but walking beside her into whatever lay beyond. His form blurred, blending into the surrounding reality. His eyes, the last human thing, remained fixed on hers, filled with recognition and gratitude. Then there was only light, and song, and becoming. Years pass in the world of solid forms. Generations are born, live, return to dust. The village near the forest shrinks, its youth drawn to cities of glass and noise. But some nights, when technology falters and stars reclaim the sky, stories are still told, of lights in the trees, of voices that speak from the space between objects. And sometimes, just sometimes, those born with a peculiar ache beneath the collarbone vanish. They leave behind only stories. Stories that grow into legends. Legends that become myths. Myths that return as dreams. Dreams that call to others across the thinning veil. Because in the end, all things are transition. All beings are bridges, and the only constant is transformation.